Bad people have these 8 signs. We live in a world shaped not by events, but by states of consciousness, and though we often look outward to label others as good or bad, righteous or evil, the truth lies deeper within the unseen realm of thought and assumption. There is a great mystery behind the souls we encounter. Every person who walks into your life is not simply flesh and blood, but an embodiment of a state they have either knowingly or unknowingly assumed. You may find yourself surrounded by joy and peace when in the company of one who has imagined love, but equally you may find yourself drained, confused, even violated, and not understand why until you discern the state the other has become. What we call bad people are not evil in the sense the world defines it. Their danger is not always in violent action or obvious betrayal. Their danger lies in what they carry within them, the silent virus of envy, deception, manipulation, and resistance to truth. They have abandoned the inner life and clung to the mask of appearances. They do not seek alignment with the divine, they seek control, and in doing so, they distort the power that was meant to create life and begin using it to destroy. But make no mistake, every bad person is a mirror, not a punishment, but a revelation. They are sent into your life not to hurt you, but to awaken you, to teach you discernment, to remind you that not all who speak in light carry light. Somewhere it is camouflage. This is not a call to fear others, it is a call to see them clearly, to pierce through charm and titles, good looks and kind words, and instead read the energy, the fruit, and the consistency of their inner world. For when you know the signs, you no longer fall prey to the performance. You see through it, and when you can see it, you can choose differently. Today, I will show you 8 signs, not obvious sins, but subtle spiritual clues that reveal when someone is walking in a corrupted state. If these signs appear repeatedly in someone's life, be slow to trust, quick to pray, and prepared to walk away, not from fear but from wisdom, not in bitterness but in spiritual authority. Now let us begin. They twist truth to control you. Truth, in its purest form, sets the soul free. It does not dominate, it does not deceive, and it does not bend to serve one's selfish end. Truth is eternal and unchanging. It is the voice of the inner man, the divine whisper within. But when a person has stepped out of alignment with their true self, when they have silenced that divine whisper in favor of their own egoic agenda, they begin to use truth not to liberate, but to control. The first sign of a bad person is not found in their outward rebellion or open sin, but in their quiet corruption of truth. They twist reality, they manipulate words, they cherry, pick facts, and they do it all to serve one purpose: control. It is subtle, rarely loud, often cloaked in religious language, intellectual argument, or emotional appeal. But make no mistake, when a soul begins using the light to cast shadows, you are in the presence of danger. Control is never the fruit of love. Love gives, liberates, releases. It never forces, never imposes, never pressures. But those who twist truth to gain control over others have abandoned love. They are no longer living from the inner kingdom. They have moved into the realm of illusion, of masks and manipulation. These people have learned the language of love and truth, but they speak it without spirit. They use it to gain power over others, not to uplift them. This sign shows up in your life when someone constantly reinterprets what you said, redefines your experience, or tells you that what you know within isn't real. They might tell you you're overreacting, that your memory is wrong, or that God told them what you should be doing. They do not point you inward. They try to become your guide, your voice, your final authority. This is not guidance. It is spiritual theft. They seek to remove your center so they can replace it with themselves, and here lies the danger. You don't immediately notice what's happening, because they often come in the form of a friend, a lover, even a leader. But watch closely. They don't just want to be in your life. They want control over how you perceive it. They want to shape your interpretation of events, dictate your responses, and define your reality. Over time, you begin to feel smaller around them, not because you've become less, but because they've overshadowed your own inner knowing. This is the slow erosion of spiritual authority, and it begins with the twisting of truth. A person like this often weaponizes your vulnerability. When you open up to them, they store your secrets not in love but in strategy. At first, they seem understanding, even compassionate, but later they use what you've shared to corner you, to guilt you, or to keep you from leaving. They remind you of your past to make you doubt your growth. They resurrect your mistakes to make you question your worth. They say they're telling you the truth, but what they offer is a counterfeit, a version of truth laced with poison. It's important to understand that bad people don't always lie in obvious ways. The danger lies in their partial truths, statements that are technically correct but spiritually corrupt. A half-truth can be more damaging than a full lie because it carries the appearance of righteousness. But when someone tells the truth with the intent to shame, dominate, or disempower, you must recognize that as a perversion. Truth, when spoken in love, convicts, but truth twisted by ego condemns. This first sign must never be ignored. A person who manipulates truth is tampering with the sacred. They are reshaping reality, not to awaken others, but to enslave them. And once someone shows you they are willing to distort truth to serve their ego, you are seeing into the deepest part of their character. That is not just a flaw, that is a spiritual crisis. Sometimes they will frame their manipulation as correction or guidance. They may quote scriptures or reference divine authority to back their opinions. But watch their fruit. If their words leave you anxious instead of empowered, if their presence stirs fear instead of peace, if their so-called truth makes you doubt your own spiritual discernment, step back. That is not correction. That is control masquerading as wisdom. You are not called to submit to someone who silences your spirit. God speaks from within, and no person, no matter how persuasive, has the right to rewrite the truth you receive in your quiet moments of prayer. Anyone who demands loyalty while sowing confusion, who commands obedience while disregarding your inner knowing, is not walking in divine alignment. They are using the forms of spirituality without its substance. And in doing so, they profane the sacred. This is how spiritual abusers operate. They don't need weapons or threats. All they need is access to your mind, your heart, and your story. Once they have that, they begin building a prison with your own memories and emotions. They will twist even the good things in your life, make you question the very blessings you once celebrated. And why? Because they cannot stand to see you free. Their power depends on your confusion. But you were never meant to be ruled by the confusion of another. You were born to walk in clarity. The divine voice speaks in peace, not pressure. It corrects in love, not humiliation. It leads with light, not fear. So, when you sense someone is tampering with that run, not always physically, but spiritually, disconnect, reclaim your authority, remember who you are. Bad people may wear the cloak of truth, but they cannot bear its light. Eventually they will be exposed, not by confrontation, but by consistency. If you stay rooted in truth, the counterfeit will unravel itself. Their need to control will reveal their weakness. Their obsession with shaping others will highlight their lack of personal transformation. You must know this. Truth cannot be owned, sold, or manipulated. It simply is, and anyone who attempts to twist it for their benefit has already divorced themselves from its power. Don't allow someone else's distorted mirror to become your reflection. See clearly, discern deeply, and choose freedom, for the twisting of truth is not just the first sign of a bad person. It is the foundation upon which all their other signs are built, and once that foundation crumbles, so does their power. They use guilt to control your choices. Guilt, in its purest essence, was never meant to imprison you. It is a whisper from the soul, a nudge when you stray from truth, a divine discomfort meant to return you to alignment. But when a person steps out of their own spiritual integrity, they begin to manipulate this sacred emotion. They take what was meant to awaken, and they use it to imprison. They weaponize guilt, not to guide you, but to govern you. This is the second sign of a bad person. They make you feel guilty for becoming who you're called to be. Rather than supporting your evolution, they subtly or overtly shame you for changing, growing, and choosing yourself. They twist your acts of self-honoring into selfishness and your boundaries into betrayal. This isn't correction, it's corruption. To understand the depth of this manipulation, you must first see how guilt functions in its rightful form. Real guilt arises when you step out of alignment with your higher self. It is internal, spiritual, and instructive, but the guilt bad people impose is external, psychological, and destructive. It is planted by words that sound like care but carry control. It enters through phrases like, "After all I've done for you," or "So this is how you treat me," or "You've changed, and not in a good way." Notice the pattern. The guilt they create has nothing to do with your moral compass and everything to do with their emotional leverage. When you begin to set boundaries, when you choose rest or dare to say no, they act as if your growth is an offense to them. That's because they were never connected to your soul. They were connected to your submission. And when your submission disappears, their so-called love turns into manipulation. Guilt in their hands becomes a cage. They build it out of past favors, emotional debts, and skewed perceptions of loyalty. They make you feel as though you owe them your peace, your time, your energy, simply because they were present in your past. But presence in your history does not grant ownership over your destiny. You do not owe anyone your future simply because they survived your yesterdays with you. You see, bad people do not value you for who you are becoming. They value you for what they can extract while you remain who they need you to be. And when you start shifting, when your voice grows louder, your path clearer, your confidence brighter, they begin to lose grip. And instead of rising with you, they anchor you with guilt. They'll remind you of your flaws, not to help you heal, but to keep you dependent. They'll bring up your failures, not to guide you into growth, but to make you feel unworthy of choosing new paths. And when they see you succeeding without their permission, they'll say you're arrogant, ungrateful, or too proud. But what they're really saying is, you're no longer under my control. This tactic often hides behind the veil of care. "I just want what's best for you," they'll say, but somehow what's best for you always seems to benefit them. They present their disapproval as concern, their discomfort as wisdom, and if you're not discerning, you'll start questioning your own inner voice. You'll hesitate before taking steps forward. You'll feel torn, not because you're doing wrong, but because you've been trained to equate peace with pleasing others. But here is the truth you must remember. Guilt is not your guide. God is. And when God leads you, he does not do so with shame, pressure, or emotional blackmail. He does not demand your obedience through fear or regret. He awakens you with love. His voice is firm, but never forceful. His guidance brings conviction, not confusion. A bad person knows you cannot be manipulated directly, so they appeal to your heart. They know your compassion is your strength, so they make it your weakness. They make you feel guilty for withdrawing, guilty for detaching, guilty for no longer accepting their chaos as your responsibility. But, beloved, hear this clearly. You are not wrong for walking away from what wounds you, even if it once fed you. Their use of guilt is not love. It is evidence that they cannot face their own emptiness, so they project it onto you. They do not want to do the inner work, so they make you feel bad for doing yours. Their accusations are not truth, they are resistance. They see your freedom as rejection, but you are not rejecting them. You are reclaiming yourself. You must become wise enough to discern when guilt is your soul's signal, and when it is someone else's strategy. Ask yourself, does this guilt bring me closer to peace or further into confusion? Does it awaken me to change or trap me in obligation? Does it feel like conviction from within or manipulation from without? If it's not born of love, if it does not call you higher, if it drains instead of renews, it is not divine, it is control. Bad people have mastered the language of victimhood. When they sense you slipping out of their grasp, they flip the narrative. They become the one who's hurt. They accuse you of abandoning them, of being cold, of being ungrateful, but what they're really mourning is not your absence, it's their loss of control. They want to be your source of permission. And when you stop asking, they grow resentful, not because they truly love you, but because they love the version of you who needed them more than you needed your truth. And when that version dies, so does their illusion of power. Don't fall into the trap of returning just to relieve your guilt. That's not healing, that's imprisonment. Real love never asks you to sacrifice your soul to save someone else's comfort. You were not created to be someone's emotional crutch. You are not the redeemer of their past, nor the architect of their growth. You are responsible for your peace, and peace does not grow where guilt rules. When someone tries to use guilt to govern your choices, you must return to the divine voice within. Stand still, listen deeply. God will never lead you through chains. He leads you through liberty. If the relationship costs your clarity, your joy, your ability to breathe, it is not of Him. And so, beloved, recognize this sign early. Don't argue, don't defend, observe. Guilt is not proof of wrong. It's often proof that you're breaking generational patterns. When a bad person says you've changed, let them speak. Your silence will echo louder than their guilt trips. Your freedom will convict what their manipulation can no longer control. Walk away, not in anger, but in truth. Love them from afar if you must. Pray for them, release them, but never return to the prison just because the jailer wept. Because the moment you realize you are no longer ruled by guilt is the moment you begin to live in grace. They secretly compete with you. There is a silent war that bad people wage not with swords, not with words, but with glances, comparisons, and energy. It is the war of competition. You will not always hear it in what they say, but you will feel it in how they respond to your success. These individuals do not celebrate your growth, they resent it. They don't applaud your progress, they measure it against their own. And even though they may smile in your presence, their heart burns with envy behind the performance. This is the third sign. They secretly compete with you. Competition is not always loud. It does not always manifest in arguments or overt attacks. Sometimes it shows up in dismissive comments, forced laughter, or sudden distance when things go well for you. When you share good news, their energy shifts. They grow silent or quickly change the subject. When you win, they feel like they've lost. When you shine, they feel like they've dimmed. And though they may not admit it, your light offends their darkness because it reminds them of the light they abandoned within themselves. You must understand, a truly healed person does not compete with you, they complement you. They do not measure their worth by your achievements. They do not feel less when you are more. But a bad person who is secretly competing with you sees your every blessing as an attack on their ego. And so they cannot love you purely. They can only tolerate you as long as you do not outgrow them. They will never say they're competing. They may even disguise their envy with compliments, but watch closely. These are the ones who say, "Oh, must be nice," when you share your breakthrough, or they tell you, "Don't forget where you came from," as if your elevation is betrayal. Or they offer backhanded praise like, "I mean, it's good, but anyone could have done that." These are not innocent remarks, they are veiled expressions of rivalry. A person in secret competition with you is like a shadow pretending to be your friend. They mimic support, but their heart is full of unrest. And because they cannot bear the discomfort of your progress, they quietly try to match it or mock it. They may suddenly start projects not from passion but from insecurity. They may try to outperform you, not to bless others, but to prove they are still ahead. Understand this. Competition only arises when a soul is disconnected from its own purpose. When someone is fully aligned with who they are meant to be, there is no reason to compete because their lane is unique and their timing is divine. But a bad person who has lost connection with their higher self must find identity through comparison. They measure their worth by outdoing others, and when you start to walk in favor, they see you as a threat, not a companion. One of the most painful things about this kind of person is their proximity. Often they are people you once confided in, loved, trusted. You may have poured into them, shared your secrets, your dreams, your fears. And while you were building connection, they were calculating leverage. You thought you were walking together, but they were secretly racing you. You must discern this early, not because you need to fight them, but because you need to free yourself. The presence of secret competition breeds spiritual tension. You may find yourself shrinking just to keep peace. You hesitate to share your good news. You water down your dreams. You minimize your calling. Why? Because part of you senses their discomfort and another part is afraid of losing the relationship. But any relationship that cannot survive your becoming is not a relationship ordained by God. You do not need to dim your light to keep others comfortable. Your progress is not an insult. Your elevation is not an attack. and if someone feels wounded by your breakthrough, they are already at war with themselves, not with you. Secret competition is also dangerous because it breeds sabotage. If a bad person is secretly competing with you and sees that they cannot keep up, they will subtly try to pull you back. This may happen through discouragement disguised as advice. Are you sure this is a good idea? Don't get your hopes up. Most people fail at that. They pretend they're trying to protect you, but in truth, they're trying to neutralize the threat of your greatness. They may also try to distract you. Notice how suddenly they need your help every time you're about to break through. Notice how they create drama right when you're stepping into peace. These are not coincidences, these are calculated disruptions. Because if they can't run ahead of you, they'll try to trip you while pretending to hold your hand. Even worse, a secretly competitive person may try to imitate you. They watch closely your language, your strategies, your style. But instead of honoring your influence, they try to replicate it without revelation. They want your results without your process. They do not create from spirit, they copy from ego. And in the end, their version is always hollow, because what you were given was meant for you. So how do you respond? You don't compete back. You don't chase validation. You don't try to prove anything. You simply rise unapologetically. You stay rooted in your calling. You protect your peace. And you withdraw from those who cannot celebrate you sincerely. You don't explain your worth to those who have already decided to see you as a rival. You let your fruit speak, and in private you forgive them not for their sake, but for yours. You do not need to carry the heaviness of resentment. Release them, bless them, and move forward. Let them compete with your past while you build your future. You are not here to compete. You are here to create. You are not in a race, you are in a revelation. Your journey is divinely designed, and no one can take what is meant for you. So do not fear the imitators, the mockers, the competitors. They can match your form, but never your favor. What is birthed from your soul cannot be stolen. What is for you cannot be copied. When someone shows you even through subtle energy that they are uncomfortable with your rise, believe them. It is not your job to make them comfortable. It is your job to become everything God imagined when He formed you, so let them compete, let them race shadows. You have no rival when you're walking in purpose. You are not trying to be better than anyone else. You are becoming exactly who you were born to be. That alone makes you unstoppable. They twist your words to make you the villain. There is a certain kind of darkness that doesn't strike you with fists. It slowly distorts your reflection until you begin to doubt your own voice. It doesn't destroy with violence, but with distortion. This is the fourth sign of a bad person. They twist your words to make you the villain. They do not seek truth. They seek control over the narrative. And they do so by manipulating how your words are perceived, not to understand you, but to accuse you. This is not misunderstanding. This is intentional misrepresentation. It begins subtly. You express a boundary, and they call it rejection. You voice a need, and they say you're being selfish. You try to clarify your feelings, and suddenly you're too emotional, too sensitive, or overreacting. Over time, your confidence weakens. You find yourself explaining more and more just to be heard. Yet the more you explain, the more they twist. You are not in a conversation. You are in a trap. Bad people do not aim to understand your heart. They aim to distort your intentions. Why? Because if they can control how your words are heard, they can control how you are perceived, and if they can turn others against you, they never have to look at themselves. This behavior is spiritual warfare. It is not just a psychological tactic. It is a disruption of identity. Words carry spiritual vibration. When your words are distorted, your essence is attacked. It's an assault on your truth, masked in clever dialogue. They will smile while twisting. They will act confused while calculating. And if you're not anchored in your own voice, you'll start to believe the version of you they create. Imagine this. You speak from love, and they label it manipulation. You speak from courage, and they call it aggression. You speak from truth, and they claim you're being dramatic. Every word you speak is filtered through their lens of insecurity and control. And no matter how clear or kind you are, they spin it. Why? Because your honesty threatens their illusions, your clarity exposes their chaos, and they cannot let you be right, because if you are, they lose their grip. In such relationships, communication is not sacred, it's weaponized. And the worst part, They don't just twist your words to your face. They twist them behind your back. They tell others what you meant, leaving out the truth of what you actually said. They present themselves as the victim of your transformation. They turn friends into skeptics and allies into judges. You may find yourself isolated, not because of what you did, but because of how they told your story. But here is what you must remember. God knows your heart even when others twist your words. Truth is never lost. It may be buried beneath distortion for a season, but it will rise. What you must not do is allow their narrative to rewrite your identity. You are not who they say you are. You are who you are when no one is watching, when you are alone with your Creator. That is your truth. That is your foundation. Twisting your words is a form of gaslighting, and gaslighting is spiritual abuse. It causes you to question your reality. It makes you feel like you have to defend your soul just to survive the moment. You start overanalyzing every sentence, every text, every breath. You wonder, did I say that wrong? Could I have explained it better? Maybe I was being too harsh. But these thoughts are not signs of guilt. They are symptoms of manipulation. Let this truth settle in your spirit. You are not responsible for how someone chooses to misinterpret your clarity. You are only responsible for speaking from a place of truth and love. When someone chooses to twist that, they reveal more about themselves than about you. The distortion is not your burden to fix. Their misunderstanding is not your shame to carry. There's a reason God often moved his chosen away from the crowds before revealing their destiny. When too many voices distort your truth, you begin to forget your sound. And sometimes separation is the only way to return to the clarity of your own soul. It is not weakness to walk away from those who constantly misunderstand you. It is wisdom. You cannot heal in an environment that is committed to misrepresenting you. A person who twists your words is not seeking reconciliation. They're seeking dominance. They want the upper hand in the emotional equation, and so they play the victim, forcing you into the role of the aggressor. But God did not give you a voice just to be misunderstood. He gave it to you so you could speak life, declare truth, and walk in authority. Don't surrender that authority to someone who uses it against you. Here is how you take your power back. First, stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. If someone is constantly twisting your meaning, stop casting your pearls before swine. Your words are sacred. Your voice is divine. Speak where there is alignment, not where there is warfare. Second, trust your knowing. God speaks in the stillness. When confusion clouds your mind, return to the original word God placed in your spirit. That knowing, that inner clarity will guide you when others try to lead you astray. Third, document truth when necessary. Some distorters are so persistent that you may need to protect yourself with clarity and evidence, not to retaliate, but to affirm your sanity. Write things down, save your peace, remember what was really said. Fourth, withdraw without drama. You don't need to announce your exit. You don't need a final word. Let them twist, let them spin, let them talk. Your silence will thunder louder than any defense. Finally, forgive not to make them feel better, but to free yourself. The weight of being misunderstood can rot your spirit if you let it linger. Release them to their own journey. Release the need to correct the lie. Let God deal with the injustice. Your focus is your becoming. You are not here to debate your truth with every spirit that seeks to distort it. You are here to embody your truth so boldly, so consistently, that no distortion can survive the presence of your light. A bad person will make you feel like you're always one sentence away from being the villain. But you are not a villain for setting boundaries. You are not a villain for growing. You are not a villain for speaking from a place of love. Their inability to receive truth is not your fault. It's a mirror of their fear. So rise, keep speaking, keep shining, let them twist. But let your life be so full of integrity that no lie can stand for long. Eventually, truth reveals itself, always, and when it does, those who twisted your words will be left tangled in their own web. They always play the victim, even when they cause the harm. There is a pattern in the behavior of those who live far from truth. When confronted with the damage they have caused, they retreat not into repentance, but into victimhood. This is the fifth sign of a bad person. They always play the victim, even when they are the one who caused the harm. They wear the mask of the wounded to escape accountability, and in doing so, they weaponize sympathy to protect their ego from the truth. This is not true brokenness, it is emotional manipulation. It is the art of escaping responsibility by pretending to be the one who was wronged. Bad people fear exposure, not because they are unaware of their behavior, but because they've built their identity on false righteousness. And when that false image is challenged, instead of taking ownership, they flip the script. Suddenly, your pain becomes an attack. Your truth becomes betrayal. Your boundaries become cruelty. The moment you ask for accountability, they shift into the posture of the injured. It is spiritual deception. These people understand that if they cry loud enough or sulk deeply enough, others will stop looking at the facts and start feeling sorry for them. And once they regain that sympathy, they regain control. You'll hear phrases like, "I can't believe you would say that about me after all I've done. I'm always the bad guy, no matter what I do. I guess I'm just a terrible person then." These statements are not confessions. They are calculated performances. Their goal is not to reconcile. Their goal is to reverse the pressure, because as long as you feel guilty for confronting them, they never have to change. The danger of this behavior is how convincing it can appear. Because yes, pain is real, and yes, people do get hurt, but a bad person uses pain as a prop, not a path to healing. They use tears not to cleanse, but to confuse. They blur the line between victim and perpetrator until no one knows who truly caused the damage, including you. You may find yourself second guessing your instincts. You may wonder, was I too harsh? Maybe I should have been more patient. Did I misread the situation? And the more they act wounded, the more you feel like you're the one who owes the apology. But that's the trap, that's the cycle. The moment you hold them accountable, they retreat into victimhood to avoid responsibility. But know this, the fruit of a person's spirit is not found in how they cry, it's found in how they change. Tears are not evidence of truth. Transformation is. If someone is truly sorry, they won't center their pain when you're expressing yours. They won't use their past wounds to silence your present experience. They won't make it about how they feel every time you try to talk about what they did. They will listen, they will reflect, and if convicted, they will grow. Bad people don't want growth, they want image maintenance. And one of the easiest ways to maintain a positive image, especially in front of others, is to cry foul, to act like the misunderstood one, the rejected one, the persecuted one. And because they often use this tactic in religious or spiritual language, it becomes even more deceptive. They say, "I was just trying to help," or "I'm being attacked for standing up for what's right." They dress their manipulation in morality to appear innocent, but God is not deceived. The Spirit sees beyond appearances and into intention. And when someone constantly plays the victim to avoid facing their own brokenness, they are not walking in truth. They are hiding in darkness, hoping your compassion will keep them covered. Let's be clear, empathy is holy, but it is not an excuse to enable dysfunction. When you constantly excuse a person's behavior because they've been through a lot, you create space for their wounds to become weapons. Pain is never an excuse to cause pain, and being broken is not a license to break others. At some point, you must realize that feeling sorry for someone is not the same as being safe with them. You can love someone and still refuse to be their emotional scapegoat. You can forgive someone and still require accountability. You can empathize with their pain and still name their behavior as toxic. Love is not silence. Love is not self-erasure. Love is truth. And when someone uses victimhood to silence your truth, they are not loving you. They are manipulating you. When you try to talk about the ways you were hurt and the conversation always turns to them, their stress, their past, their fears, know that you're not being heard. You're being redirected. You're being erased. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the more invisible you become. Your needs fade, your voice shrinks, your reality warps, until one day you don't even remember what normal feels like. You only know what it means to keep the peace. But your healing cannot begin until you stop protecting the person who keeps breaking you. There comes a moment where you must decide, do I want to be understood by them, or do I want to be free from them? You will not get both. A person who always plays the victim when they hurt you will never validate your experience, because to validate you would mean they must confront themselves, and that is what they fear most. So how do you respond? First, recognize the pattern. Every time you bring up a concern, do they deflect it back to how you made them feel? Every disagreement becomes an accusation against you. Do you find yourself apologizing just to restore peace, even when you were the one hurt? These are red flags not of weakness in you, but of manipulation in them. Second, stop over-explaining. A person who is committed to misunderstanding you will use your explanations against you. The more you explain, the more ammunition they gather. Say what is true, say it with love, and say it once. After that, your silence is your strength. Third, release the fantasy. The idea that one day they'll suddenly say, "You were right, I did hurt you, and I'm sorry," may never happen. And holding on to that hope can keep you in emotional bondage. Sometimes closure is not a conversation. It's a decision. Lastly, walk in truth. Don't let their false victimhood rewrite your narrative. You are not the villain for asking to be respected. You are not cruel for having boundaries. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. Your clarity is not the problem. Their unwillingness to face themselves is. And when you walk away from someone who always plays the victim, you are not abandoning them. You are honoring your soul. You don't have to be the healer of every wound you didn't cause. You don't have to carry the guilt of someone else's inability to grow. And you don't have to justify your departure from a place that was slowly destroying your identity. Stand in truth, speak in love, and know that God will vindicate your heart in time.